My father's voice cut through the dining room like a knife through silence. Dad yelled, "You've been nothing but a disgrace since the day you were born." My mother, sitting perfectly still in her chair, with her hands folded like she was praying, added the final blow. "We wish you never existed." The words hung in the air above the remains of pot roast and mashed potatoes. I stood up slowly, adjusted my jacket, and looked at both of them one last time. "Then I'll stop existing to you," I said. I walked out of that house in suburban Connecticut and didn't look back. 30 minutes later, my phone started buzzing with their voices filling my voicemail. 49 missed calls. I ignored every single one. I pulled into my apartment complex in downtown Hartford just after 9 that night. My hands were still shaking on the steering wheel, but underneath the trembling was something else. Liberation. For the first time in 32 years, I had chosen myself over their expectations. I grabbed my phone and blocked both their numbers without listening to a single voicemail. Inside my apartment, I opened a beer and sat down at my laptop. Teaching certification programs in Connecticut flooded my screen. Mathematics education, high school level. This was what I actually wanted. Not another decade pushing numbers at Miller and Associates Accounting, the family firm where my last name mattered more than my soul. I spent that entire night researching programs, costs, requirements. My master's degree in mathematics would transfer beautifully. I could be in a classroom by next fall. The thought made me smile for the first time since dinner. I fell asleep on my couch, with my laptop still open, dreaming about equations on whiteboards and students who actually wanted to learn. The next morning, reality crashed back in. I still had to go to work. Miller and Associates wasn't just my family's firm. It was my current employer. I hadn't officially resigned yet. That conversation would come later, after I had everything lined up. I showered, put on my usual gray suit, and drove to the office building I'd been entering since I was 24 years old. My younger brother, Tyler, was already at his desk when I arrived. He was 28, 4 years younger than me, and he'd always been the golden child who never questioned anything. He looked up as I passed, and there was something in his expression I couldn't quite read. A smirk, maybe, or satisfaction. "Hey, Harrison," he called out. "Dad wants to see you in the conference room. Emergency board meeting." I stopped walking. "What meeting?" "I haven't resigned yet," Tyler shrugged, turning back to his computer. "Guess you should have thought about that before last night." My stomach dropped. I walked slowly down the hallway toward the conference room, my footsteps echoing on the polished floors. Through the glass walls, I could see my father Gerald sitting at the head of the table. Senior partner. Founder. The man who'd built this firm from nothing 40 years ago. Next to him were the other 3 partners, all men in their 50s and 60s who'd worked with my father for decades. I opened the door and stepped inside. Nobody smiled. "Sit down, Harrison," my father said. His voice was cold, professional, nothing like the rage from last night. Saturday. My palms were sweating. Gerald slid a folder across the table toward me. "We're terminating your employment effective immediately. Unprofessional conduct and disloyalty to the firm." I stared at the folder like it was a snake. "What are you talking about? I haven't done anything." One of the other partners, a man named Charles, cleared his throat. "We have evidence you've been discussing confidential client information with competitors. Specifically, you've been in contact with Brennan Financial Group, sharing details about our client portfolios." "That's insane," I said, my voice rising. "I've never contacted Brennan in my life. This is completely fabricated." Gerald opened another folder and pulled out printed emails. "Your email signature. Your company account. Dates going back 3 months. You've been shopping our clients to them, probably trying to secure yourself a position there before you left us." I grabbed the papers and scanned them. They looked real. My email address, my signature block, conversations about specific clients. But I'd never written these. I'd never even thought about contacting a competitor. "This is forged," I said, looking directly at my father. "You accessed my computer. You created these." Gerald's expression didn't change. "That's a serious accusation, Harrison. Are you calling me a liar?" "I'm calling this exactly what it is. Revenge. Because I told you I wanted to teach, instead of taking the partnership." The room went silent. The other partners looked uncomfortable. Charles shifted in his seat. Whether you believe these emails are real or not, the decision stands, Gerald said. You're terminated. Security will escort you out. You have 1 hour to clear your personal items. I'll sue, I said. I'll take this to court. You can't just destroy evidence and lie to cover it up. Gerald smiled then. A cold, calculated smile. You can certainly try, but ask yourself, Harrison, how much will that cost? A good employment attorney runs $300 an hour. This case could take years. Tens of thousands of dollars. Maybe hundreds of thousands. And even if you win, what have you won? A job you don't want at a firm that doesn't want you? Meanwhile, I'll make sure every accounting firm in Connecticut knows exactly what you did. You'll never work in this field again. You're bluffing, I said, but my voice sounded weak, even to me. Try me, Gerald said. I stood up, my legs unsteady. This isn't over. Actually, it is, Gerald replied. He slid one more document across the table. This is your severance agreement. $5,000. In exchange, you agree not to work in accounting within 200 miles of Hartford for 5 years. If you accept, you sign, take the money, and leave quietly. If you reject it, you get nothing, and will file a civil suit against you for breach of confidentiality and theft of proprietary information. You have 48 hours to decide. I picked up the severance agreement with shaking hands. $5,000. That wouldn't even cover 2 months of rent. And the non-compete clause would destroy any chance I had of working in the field while I transitioned to teaching. I looked at my father. At this man who'd raised me, taught me to ride a bike, came to my college graduation, the man who was now systematically destroying my career because I dared to want something different. I'll be in touch, I said. I walked out of that conference room, past Tyler, who wouldn't meet my eyes, and out to my car in the parking lot. The severance agreement sat on my passenger seat like a coiled snake. 48 hours to choose between 2 terrible options. Accept the money and give up my career, or reject it and face a lawsuit I couldn't afford to fight. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, staring at the steering wheel. My phone buzzed. A text from Tyler. You should take the deal. They're not going to back down. Trust me on this. I threw my phone into the passenger seat and started the engine. My parents had just declared war, and I had no idea how to fight back. I spent the next 2 days in my apartment, researching everything I could find about wrongful termination and employment law in Connecticut. On the second day, I used $300 I could barely afford and consulted with an employment attorney named Richard Chen. He listened to my story, reviewed the forged emails, and gave me the answer I'd been dreading. Your father's smart, Richard said, leaning back in his chair. Everything he's doing is technically legal, even if it's unethical. The emails are good forgeries. Without a forensic IT analysis, which would cost thousands, you can't prove they're fake. And even if you could, wrongful termination cases are hard to win. Connecticut is an at-will employment state. They can fire you for almost any reason. Fighting this would cost you $50,000 minimum, probably more. And it could take 2 years. So I'm just supposed to accept this? Richard shrugged. Take the severance. Move on. Start your teaching career. Don't let them drag you through the mud for years. I left his office feeling defeated, but I made my decision. I wasn't going to accept their terms. I was going to reject the severance, apply for teaching positions immediately, and get out of accounting altogether. If they wanted to sue me, let them try. I had nothing worth taking. Over the next week, I applied to 15 schools across Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. My credentials were strong. Master's degree in mathematics from a respected university, 8 years of professional experience. I could teach calculus, statistics, algebra. I should have been a competitive candidate. The rejection emails started coming within days. Thank you for your interest, but we've decided to move forward with other candidates. We appreciate your application, but the position has been filled. Your qualifications are impressive, but we don't feel you're the right fit at this time. After the 10th rejection, I got a phone call. It was from a principal at a school in New Haven. His voice was apologetic. Mr. Davis, I'm calling because I feel you deserve to know the truth. Your application was excellent. We were going to offer you an interview, but I received a call from a Gerald Miller. He said he was your former employer. He told me you were terminated for ethics violations, sharing confidential information. He strongly suggested we not hire you. The phone felt heavy in my hand. How many schools has he called? I don't know, but I wanted you to be aware. I'm sorry. We can't risk hiring someone with that kind of background, even if the allegations are false. I understand, I said. Thank you for telling me. I hung up and immediately called Tyler. He answered on the third ring. We need to talk, I said. In person. Harrison, I don't think that's a good idea right now. I'm not asking. Coffee shop on Broad Street. 1 hour. He was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth, with his hands wrapped around a mug. I slid into the seat across from him. You need to talk to them, I said. Make them stop. This is insane. Dad's calling every school I apply to. Tyler looked at me like I was a child who didn't understand how the world worked. Harrison, you embarrassed them. In front of the whole family. You rejected everything they built for you. Did you really think they'd just let you walk away? This isn't about embarrassment. This is about my life, my future. Tyler leaned forward. Do you know what Mom's been doing? She's been calling your friends, telling them you had some kind of breakdown, that you're not stable. She's been talking to people at your gym, your old college buddies, anyone she can reach. And Dad's contacted every accounting firm within 3 states. You're blacklisted, Harrison. Completely. My throat tightened. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to understand what you're up against. They're not going to stop until you come back and apologize. Take the partnership. Admit you were wrong. That's the only way this ends. I stared at my brother. What about you? Are you going to help me? Tyler looked away. I have a wife, Harrison, and a baby on the way. I can't throw away my career because you decided to have a principal's stand. I'm sorry, but I have to think about my family. I'm your family, I said quietly. Not anymore. You made that choice. I left the coffee shop feeling hollow. My own brother had chosen their side. Or maybe he'd always been on their side. I drove back to my apartment and found an eviction notice taped to my door. My landlord, a man who played golf with my father every summer, was terminating my lease. Violation of noise ordinances and disturbing neighbors. All lies. I had 30 days to vacate. I went inside and checked my bank account. My emergency savings had dwindled to $3,000. No job, no prospects, soon no home. I sat on my couch and put my head in my hands. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered it. Is this Harrison Davis? Yes. This is Allied Credit Services. You owe $18,400 on a Capital One credit card. Your account is 90 days past due. We need to arrange payment immediately. I don't have a Capital One credit card, I said. According to our records, this account was opened 6 months ago in your name. The charges include cash advances and purchases across multiple states. If you don't make payment arrangements within 10 days, we'll be forced to take legal action. Someone opened that card fraudulently, I said. I never authorized it. You'll need to file a police report and dispute the charges through the proper channels. Until then, you're responsible for the debt. We'll be calling again. The line went dead. I sat there holding my phone, the pieces clicking together. Identity theft. My parents had all my personal information. Social security number, birth date, mother's maiden name. They could open accounts in my name easily, and they had. They weren't just punishing me. They were systematically destroying every aspect of my life. My career, my reputation, my home, my credit. They were taking everything, piece by piece, until I had nothing left but the choice to come back to them broken and submissive. I called the Hartford Police non-emergency line and filed a report for identity theft. The officer who took my information sounded bored. These cases take months to investigate, he said. Maybe longer. You should contact the credit bureaus and start disputing the charges. I spent the rest of the evening on the phone with Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. The process was bureaucratic and slow. It would take weeks just to get the fraudulent accounts flagged, let alone removed. Meanwhile, the damage to my credit was done. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. 30 days until eviction. $3,000 to my name. No job, no family, no future I could see. My parents had built a perfect trap. Every direction I turned, they'd already blocked the path, and the only way out was to surrender completely. I filed the police report. I contacted the credit bureaus. I disputed every fraudulent charge. The process was agonizingly slow, drowning me in bureaucracy while my savings evaporated. I took a job at a warehouse on the night shift, $10 an hour, loading boxes until my back screamed. It was humiliating work for someone with a master's degree, but I needed money for food and rent. During my breaks, I kept applying to teaching positions. I expanded my search. Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, places far enough away that maybe my father's reach wouldn't extend. I sent out 20 more applications in 2 weeks. Then I got a call that changed everything. A high school in Burlington, Vermont wanted an interview. The principal, a woman named Catherine Brennan, sounded enthusiastic about my credentials. We spoke for 45 minutes about curriculum development and teaching philosophy. At the end of the call, she said something that made my heart race. "Mr. Davis, I'm very impressed. Pending your background check and references, I'd like to offer you this position. We need someone who can teach advanced placement calculus, and your qualifications are exactly what we're looking for." I thanked her and hung up, feeling hope for the first time in weeks. Burlington was 200 miles away. A fresh start, new state, new life. I could rent a small apartment, live simply, teach students who actually wanted to learn. My parents couldn't reach me there. I found a cheap sublet for my final 2 weeks before the eviction. Just a room in a house near the warehouse, $400. The landlord didn't ask questions or run credit checks. I moved my belongings in boxes, preparing for the transition to Vermont. 3 days before my eviction date, I was at the warehouse stacking pallets when 2 police officers walked through the loading dock. They were looking for me. My supervisor pointed in my direction. The officers approached, hands resting casually on their belts. "Harrison Davis?" "Yes?" "You need to come with us. You're under arrest." "For what?" "Assault and battery." They handcuffed me in front of 20 coworkers. The walk to the patrol car felt like it lasted hours. Everyone was staring. I tried to explain that there was some mistake, but the officers weren't interested in my explanations. At the station, they processed me through booking, fingerprints, mugshot. The whole humiliating ritual. In the interrogation room, a detective explained the charges. "Your mother, Patricia Miller, filed a report 3 days ago. She states that you came to your parents' residence on the evening of October 15th, threatened both parents, and physically assaulted your father. She claims you pushed Gerald Miller down the stairs, resulting in bruised ribs and a sprained wrist. They have medical documentation." "I was home alone that night," I said. "I never went to their house. I haven't seen them since I walked out of that dinner." "Can anyone verify your whereabouts?" "No. I was alone in my apartment." The detective sighed. "It's your word against theirs, Mr. Davis, and they're respected members of the community. Gerald Miller has been a business owner in Hartford for 40 years. Your mother is on the board of 3 charities. You're currently unemployed with a damaged reputation. This doesn't look good for you." "This is retaliation," I said. "They're lying because I refused to work at their company. That's for the court to decide." They assigned me a public defender, a tired-looking woman named Rachel, who'd probably handled 5,000 cases exactly like mine. She reviewed the charges and gave me the bad news. He said she said cases are tough. If they have medical records, and you have no alibi, a jury might believe them. "We can try to fight it, but you should consider a plea deal if they offer one." I posted bail using the last $2,000 I had. When I walked out of the police station, my phone had 7 missed calls. One was from Catherine Brennan in Burlington. I called her back with shaking hands. "Mr. Davis, I'm very sorry, but we have to withdraw our job offer. Your background check flagged a pending assault charge. We simply cannot hire someone with that on their record. I hope you understand." "I understand," I said, and ended the call. I walked to where my car should have been parked. The space was empty. Confused, I called the number on the parking sign. "Your vehicle was repossessed this morning," the woman on the phone told me. 3 missed payments." "I've been making my payments," I said. "According to our records, the last 3 payments were reversed and flagged as fraudulent. The account is in default." I hung up and sat down on the curb. No job in Vermont. No car. No money. facing criminal charges that could send me to prison. The weight of it all pressed down on my chest until I couldn't breathe. My parents had orchestrated absolute destruction. They'd taken literally everything. My phone buzzed. A text from Tyler. They said they'll make it all go away if you apologize and take the partnership. Just give in, Harrison. This is insane. I stared at the message. They wanted total submission, complete surrender. My dignity, my dreams, my sense of self. All of it, handed over in exchange for making the nightmare stop. I sat there on that curb as the sun set, holding my phone, trying to figure out if I had any fight left in me at all. I spent my first night in a motel on the outskirts of Hartford. $60 for a room that smelled like mildew and cigarettes. I lay on the bed fully clothed, staring at the water-stained ceiling. Every muscle in my body hurt from the warehouse work. My mind hurt worse. I'd reached the bottom. No money, no car, no job, no home, no family. Facing 2 criminal charges that could put me in prison. My parents had won. Maybe Tyler was right. Maybe I should just call them, apologize, go back to the firm, and accept that some battles aren't worth fighting. I picked up my phone and stared at it for 20 minutes. My thumb hovered over the screen. I could unblock their numbers. Make the call. End this nightmare with 3 words. I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't make the call. The next morning, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Harrison? This is Amanda Richardson. I sat up so fast my head spun. Amanda. My ex-girlfriend from college. We'd dated for 3 years. Broke up 7 years ago when she moved to Boston for law school. We'd kept in touch sporadically over social media, but I hadn't actually spoken to her in years. Amanda, hi. How did you get my number? I heard about what's happening. Through mutual friends. Harrison, I'm an attorney now. I specialize in employment and family law. Can we meet? I think I can help you. I don't have money for a lawyer, I said. I'm not asking for money. Can you meet me for coffee this afternoon? There's a place in West Hartford. 2 o'clock. I took a bus to West Hartford, using $3 I could barely spare. Amanda was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with a laptop and a thick folder of papers. She looked different, more polished, more confident. Her hair was shorter, professional. She stood up when she saw me and gave me a brief hug. You look terrible, she said. Thanks. You look great. We sat down and she opened her folder. I've been doing research since I heard about your situation. Harrison, what your parents are doing goes way beyond normal family conflict. This is systematic harassment. It's possibly criminal. I want to help you fight back. Why? I asked. We haven't talked in years. She smiled. Because I always respected you. And because your family's reputation for ruthlessness is well known in legal circles. Your father has destroyed people before. I'd like to see someone finally stand up to him. Over the next hour, I told her everything. The fake termination, the blacklisting, the identity theft, the false assault charges. Amanda took notes, her expression growing darker with each revelation. This is worse than I thought, she said. But it's also better. Because they've made mistakes. The coordination is too obvious. The timing is too convenient. We can build a case. I can't afford to fight this, Amanda. I have maybe $500 left. I'm doing this pro bono, she said. Consider it payback for all those times you helped me study for my economics exams in college. I felt tears forming and blinked them back. What do we do? First, we document everything. Second, I'm connecting you with a private investigator I know. His name is Frank Russo. He's a retired cop who owes me a favor. He's going to help us gather evidence of your father's interference. Amanda lent me $2,000 from her own savings. Told me to find a room somewhere cheap and focus on surviving while she worked on the legal strategy. I found a room in a boarding house in a rough neighborhood. $250 a month. The room was barely bigger than a closet, but it had a bed and a door that locked. I started working double shifts at the warehouse and picked up weekend work as a janitor at an office building, 16-hour days. My body was constantly exhausted, but I was making just enough to eat and keep the boarding house room. Frank, the private investigator, started his work. He was a broad-shouldered man in his 50s, with gray hair and sharp eyes. He'd been a detective for 25 years before retiring. "Your father's sloppy," Frank said during our first meeting. "Guys like him get overconfident. They think they're untouchable. That's when they make mistakes. I'm going to find those mistakes." 2 weeks later, Frank called me with disturbing news. "Your brother Tyler has been helping your parents. He's been feeding them information about where you're living, where you're working, what job applications you're sending. He's getting rewarded for it. Your father just made him junior partner at the firm." I felt like I'd been punched. My own brother, not just staying silent, but actively betraying me, helping them hunt me down. I sent Tyler a text message. "Why?" His response came 30 minutes later. "I have a family to think about, a wife, a kid on the way. I can't throw away my career for your pride. You should have just played along." "They're not going to stop, Harrison." I deleted his number from my phone. Amanda filed a civil lawsuit against Gerald and the firm for wrongful termination and defamation. She also submitted new evidence to the police about the identity theft, working with Frank to trace the fraudulent credit card applications. The investigation was slow, but progress was happening. For the first time in weeks, I felt like maybe I wasn't completely powerless. Then they struck again. I came back to the boarding house after my warehouse shift at 2 in the morning. The street was lit up with police cars and ambulances. My heart sank as I got closer. Police officers were everywhere. The front door to the boarding house was open, yellow crime scene tape across the entrance. I approached one of the officers. "I live here." "What happened?" "There was a drug bust. We found methamphetamine and distribution equipment in one of the rooms. Yours, according to the landlord." "That's impossible," I said. "I don't use drugs. I don't sell drugs." The officer looked at me with the expression cops get when they've heard every excuse. "You're Harrison Davis?" "Yes." "You're under arrest." They found bags of methamphetamine and digital scales in my room. Planted, obviously, but proving that would be another legal battle I couldn't afford. They took me back to the station, processed me again, charged me with possession with intent to distribute, a felony charge. 5 to 15 years if convicted. Amanda showed up at my arraignment, furious. "This is blatant," she said. "The timing is too convenient. Right after we filed a civil suit. But Harrison, this is bad. Really bad. If you're convicted of this charge, we lose all credibility in the wrongful termination case." My bail was set at $50,000. Impossible. I sat in county jail for 4 days before Amanda managed to get the bail reduced to $10,000. She paid it herself, putting up her own money again. When I was released, she drove me to her office. We sat in her conference room, and she laid out the situation. "We're running out of legal options. Your parents have unlimited resources. They can keep this up indefinitely. You need to stay out of jail, fight these charges, and hope we can prove they're fabrications. But it's going to take time." "How much time?" "Months. Maybe a year." "Can you hold on that long?" I didn't answer. I didn't know. Frank called that evening. "I've got something. Security footage from a gas station near your boarding house. The night the drugs were planted. Tyler's car is in the footage. Timestamp matches. My brother planted the drugs. My own brother tried to send me to prison." Amanda put her hand on my shoulder. "Then we fight back. No more defense. We go on offense. We find evidence. We expose them, and we make them pay." Amanda, Frank, and I met at her office to plan our next move. The security footage of Tyler's car was helpful, but not conclusive. Tyler could claim he was just driving through the neighborhood. We needed more. We needed someone on the inside. Frank had an idea. "There's an administrative assistant at your father's firm. Woman named Donna Walsh. She's been there for 20 years, seen everything." I did some background research. Her daughter was fired from a job about a year ago. Donna suspects your father made some calls, retaliation, because she questioned some expense reports. She might be willing to help us. "We need to be careful," Amanda said. "If we approach her wrong, she could go straight to Gerald." Frank nodded. "Let me handle it. I've got a way with people." Over the next 3 weeks, Frank worked on Donna. He approached her carefully, building trust, explaining what Gerald had done to me. Donna was hesitant at first. She needed her job. She had a mortgage, medical bills. But Frank's research was right. She had her own grudge against Gerald. And after several conversations, she agreed to help. Donna started secretly copying files and emails. Every night after everyone left the office, she'd access the server and download documents. Emails between Gerald and Tyler discussing my movements. Records of Gerald's calls to schools and accounting firms. Most importantly, evidence that Gerald had accessed my work computer to create the fake emails that got me fired. The smoking gun came 3 weeks into Donna's cooperation. She secretly recorded a partners meeting using her phone. In the recording, Gerald joked about teaching his ungrateful son a lesson he won't forget. He laughed about how easy it was to manipulate the situation. The other partners laughed along, complicit in everything. Amanda listened to the recording 3 times, a smile spreading across her face. "This is it, Harrison. This is everything we need. I can file criminal complaints. I can amend the civil suit. We can bury them with this." I felt hope for the first time in months. Real hope. Not just survival, but victory. Amanda spent the next week preparing new legal filings. She worked late every night, organizing evidence, building the case. We scheduled a meeting for Monday morning to file everything with the court and the district attorney's office. Sunday night, my phone rang. It was Donna. She was crying. "He knows," she said. "Gerald knows. The IT department flagged my access logs. He fired me an hour ago. He threatened me with legal action if I talk. Harrison, I'm so sorry. I tried." "It's okay, Donna. You did more than enough. Thank you." I hung up and called Amanda immediately. "We have a problem." She answered on the first ring. "I know. Gerald's lawyer just sent me a cease and desist. They're claiming any documents Donna provided were stolen and are inadmissible. They're threatening me with disbarment for conspiring to steal privileged information. Can they do that? They can try. It would be a long fight. Harrison, I need to be honest with you. If I pursue this and they file a complaint with the Bar Association, I could lose my license. I could lose everything I've worked for." "Then don't do it," I said. "I can't let you destroy your career for me. You've already done too much." There was a long silence on the line. "I'm not backing down," she finally said, "but we need to change tactics. The courts are too slow. Your parents have too much money for lawyers. We need public pressure." "What do you mean?" "We need to go public with your story. The media. Get ahead of their narrative." I thought about it. A public fight meant exposing everything. My family's dirty secrets. My own humiliation. But staying quiet had gotten me nowhere. "Okay," I said. "Let's do it." I contacted an investigative journalist named Sarah Mitchell who wrote for the Hartford Times. She covered corporate corruption and family scandals. I gave her copies of everything. The documents, the recordings. My entire story. Sarah was interested immediately. A wealthy family systematically destroying their own son made compelling news. She started investigating, interviewing Donna, Amanda, and Frank. She planned to publish a major exposé the following week. I felt like we were finally gaining ground, finally fighting back, instead of just defending. Then Gerald made his countermove. On Thursday morning, 2 court officers showed up at my janitor job. They served me with a restraining order. Gerald had filed an emergency petition claiming I'd been stalking and harassing both him and Patricia. The order prohibited me from coming within 500 feet of either parent. More importantly, it included a gag order. I was prohibited from making defamatory public statements about them pending Gerald's libel suit. I called Amanda immediately. "What does this mean for Sarah's article?" "It means if she publishes, your father will sue for defamation. And he'll sue the newspaper. They'll tie us up in court for years. The newspaper's legal team is already nervous. They might kill the story." I sat in the janitor's closet at the office building, surrounded by mops and cleaning supplies, and felt the trap closing again. Every time we found a way forward, they blocked it. Every time we gained momentum, they crushed it. That evening, I met Amanda and Frank at Amanda's office. We all looked exhausted. Amanda had dark circles under her eyes. Frank's usual confident demeanor was cracked. We were out of legal moves that wouldn't take years and cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. "My criminal trials are in 6 weeks," I said. "If I'm convicted on either charge, I'll go to prison. Everything we've worked for means nothing if I'm behind bars. Frank leaned back in his chair. They're playing chess, moving pieces methodically, blocking every path. Then we need to flip the board, I said. Both of them looked at me. What do you mean? Amanda asked. They've been winning because they're fighting on their terms. Legal battles, money, connections. We can't beat them there. But there's one thing they care about more than winning. Their reputation. Everything they've done has been in secret. Using proxies. Legal manipulation. What if we force them into the open? Make them reveal themselves publicly? How? Frank asked. I'm going to give them what they want. I'm going to surrender. Amanda shook her head. Harrison, no. That's exactly what they want. You go back, you lose everything. I'm not really surrendering, I said. I'm setting a trap. I'll call them, tell them I'm ready to apologize and take the partnership. I'll ask to meet at a restaurant for a reconciliation dinner. But I'll be recording the conversation. Connecticut is a one-party consent state. I can legally record without telling them. Frank caught on immediately. You think they'll confess? People who go to this much trouble usually want their victim to know how clever they were. My father's arrogant. He'll gloat. And if I can get him to admit what he's done on tape, we'll have everything we need. It's risky, Amanda said. If they don't confess, you've wasted your last chance. We don't have any other options, I said. The trials are in 6 weeks. This is it. Frank pulled out a small device from his bag. Professional recording equipment. I'll position myself at a nearby table with a directional microphone as backup. You wear the wire. We'll get everything. Amanda looked at both of us, then nodded slowly. Okay, let's do it. I pulled out my phone and unblocked my father's number. I hadn't called him in 3 months. My hand was shaking as I dialed. He answered on the second ring. Dad, I said. It's Harrison. I want to talk. The restaurant was called Giovanni's, an upscale Italian place in downtown Hartford, where my father had held business dinners for years. I arrived 15 minutes early, my shirt damp with sweat despite the cool October evening. The recording device was taped to my chest under my button-down. Frank was already positioned at a table near the back, partially hidden by a decorative partition, his directional microphone disguised as a water bottle. Amanda was outside in her car, listening through her phone on an open line in my pocket. My father arrived exactly on time. He never was late for anything. My mother was with him, wearing a navy dress and pearl necklace, her makeup perfect. And Tyler. I hadn't expected Tyler. My younger brother walked in behind them, his expression unreadable. They were already seated when I approached the table. My father stood and shook my hand like we were business associates. Firm grip, professional smile. My mother kissed my cheek. Tyler just nodded. Harrison, my father said. I'm glad you called. Very glad. The waiter came, and my father ordered a bottle of expensive wine. Barolo, he said. Something to celebrate. We made small talk for the first few minutes. My mother asked about where I was living. I gave vague answers. Tyler talked about his wife's pregnancy, how they were planning to buy a bigger house. I played along, keeping my voice humble, defeated. When the wine arrived, my father poured glasses for everyone. He raised his. To family, he said. We clinked glasses. I took a small sip and set mine down. Dad, I want to apologize, I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. I was wrong, about everything. I should never have disrespected you or this family. I should never have walked out of that dinner. I want to come back to the firm. My mother dabbed her eyes with her napkin. Oh, Harrison, we're just so glad you came to your senses. These past months have been so hard for us. I kept my expression neutral. I know, and I'm sorry for putting you through that. My father nodded slowly, taking another sip of wine. The partnership is still available, Harrison. But there are conditions. You understand that, don't you? Of course. He pulled a folded document from his jacket pocket and slid it across the table. I need you to sign this. It acknowledges your previous misconduct, the breach of confidentiality, the unprofessional behavior. You'll also need to make a public apology to the other partners at the firm. And there's the matter of compensation for damages you caused. $25,000 to be deducted from your salary over the next 3 years. I picked up the document, forcing myself to read it slowly, even though every word made me want to throw the wine in his face. The document was expertly crafted. Signing it would be admitting to crimes I didn't commit, accepting guilt for everything they'd fabricated. This seems extreme, I said carefully. All of this because I wanted to teach? My father leaned back, swirling his wine. Because you needed to learn, Harrison. You don't get to disrespect this family. You don't throw away everything we built for you because you want to play teacher with high school kids. My mother added, her voice sweet but with steel underneath. We built everything for you boys, the firm, the reputation, the connections. You don't just walk away from that. There are consequences for betrayal. I looked down at my hands. I need to understand. Why did you go so far? The job blacklisting, the eviction, the arrests. That's more than teaching me a lesson. That's destroying my life. Tyler smirked. You should have seen your face when you got arrested that first time. My blood went cold. Tyler had just admitted knowledge. He'd essentially confessed. My father shot Tyler a warning look, but the wine was already loosening tongues. Your brother is exaggerating, my father said. But yes, sometimes lessons need to be harsh. You're a stubborn man, Harrison. You always have been. We knew you'd break eventually. They all do. I kept my voice steady. Did you really have to ruin everything? My career, my credit, my home? My father took a long drink of wine, his eyes hardening. Ruin? We didn't ruin anything, Harrison. We own your life. We always have. We created you. We raised you. We paid for your education. Every opportunity you ever had came from us. And when you tried to throw it back in our faces, yes, we reminded you of that fact. My mother leaned forward. The assault charges will be dropped once you sign this agreement. The drug charges too. We have connections in the prosecutor's office. All of it goes away. You come back to the firm, you work hard, you make us proud, and this whole nightmare is forgotten. What about the identity theft? I asked. The credit card fraud? My father waved his hand dismissively. Small potatoes. We'll handle it. Consider it part of your education. Tyler was grinning now, apparently forgetting caution. Dude, the look on your face when your car got repossessed? That was perfect timing. My father didn't even reprimand him this time. He was getting comfortable, enjoying the moment. He leaned back and smiled. You think you're the first person who tried to defy me? Harrison? I've destroyed business partners who crossed me, competitors who got in my way, politicians who wouldn't play ball. You're my son. You should have known better than anyone what happens to people who challenge me. So this was all about control, I said quietly. This was about respect, my father replied, and about teaching you that you're nothing without this family. Everything you are, everything you'll ever be, exists because we allow it. 3 months ago, you thought you could just walk away and be fine. How did that work out for you? My mother nodded. We did this because we love you, Harrison. Sometimes love means being cruel to be kind. You understand that now, don't you? I looked at all three of them. My father, confident and smug. My mother, convinced of her own righteousness. Tyler, enjoying my humiliation, and something inside me snapped. Not into rage, but into clarity. These people weren't my family. They were my abusers. And I was done being their victim. I stood up slowly. You're right, Dad. I should have known better. My father smiled. Good. Sign the document and we can move forward. I pulled out my phone and stopped the recording app. But I did learn something important these past 3 months. I learned exactly who you are. And now everyone else is going to learn too. My father's smile vanished. What are you talking about? I just recorded this entire conversation. Every word, every confession. Connecticut is a one-party consent state. I only needed my permission to record, and my lawyer just heard everything. I turned the phone screen toward them. Amanda's face was visible on the FaceTime call, waving from her car outside. You recorded this? My father's voice was low, dangerous. That recording won't matter. I have the best lawyers in this state. They'll tie this up for years. Maybe, I said. But Sarah Mitchell from the Hartford Times is publishing the full story tonight. Your confessions, the documents, everything. Your reputation will be destroyed by morning. My mother's face went white. You wouldn't dare. We're your parents. You stopped being my parents the day you called me a disgrace and said you wished I never existed. You're criminals. And you're going down. Tyler stood up fast, his chair scraping. You're dead to this family. I was already dead to you, I said. Now you get to be dead to everyone else. My father pulled out his phone, made a call. His voice was urgent, angry. He hung up and looked at me with pure hatred. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. The restaurant door opened. Two men in suits walked directly to our table. But they weren't my father's people. They walked past me and stopped at my father's side. Gerald Miller, we're with the FBI. We need you to come with us for questioning regarding an ongoing investigation into financial fraud and embezzlement. My father stared at them. What investigation? The agent explained calmly. We've been looking into your firm's finances for several months. Multiple clients have filed complaints about missing funds. The recording your son just made provided additional evidence of criminal intent and conspiracy. We have a warrant for your records, and we need you to come downtown for questioning. The second agent looked at Tyler. Tyler Miller, you're also needed for questioning. We have evidence of your involvement. Tyler's confident expression crumbled. Dad? My father said nothing. The agents escorted both of them out of the restaurant. Other diners were staring now, phones out, recording everything. My mother sat frozen, her perfect makeup streaked with tears. She looked at me with disbelief. What have you done? I survived, I said. That's what I did. Amanda walked into the restaurant and put her hand on my shoulder. The prosecutor just called. All charges against you are being dropped. With this recording and the FBI investigation, they know the assault and drug charges were fabricated. My mother stood up, her legs shaking. You've destroyed this family. No, I said. You destroyed it. I just made sure everyone could see it. She grabbed her purse and walked out, leaving me standing there with Amanda. The other diners were still watching. Frank emerged from his table in the back, gave me a thumbs up. We got everything, he said. Crystal clear audio. I sat back down in my chair, suddenly exhausted. My whole body felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Amanda sat next to me. It's over, she said. You won. I didn't feel like I'd won. I felt empty, sad, relieved, angry, everything at once. My family was gone. Destroyed, but also destroyers. And I was free, but at the cost of everything I'd once thought mattered. Frank ordered us drinks. We sat there for another hour, processing what had just happened. Outside, I could see news vans pulling up. Sarah's story was already breaking online. My phone was blowing up with notifications. The story was everywhere. Gerald Miller, respected businessman, accused of fraud, embezzlement, systematic harassment. The recording was being shared thousands of times. My father's reputation was burning down in real time, and I'd lit the match. 3 months later, I sat in a coffee shop in Burlington, Vermont, watching snow fall through the window. My apartment was 10 minutes away, a modest one-bedroom in a converted house near the university. Tomorrow was my first day as a mathematics teacher at Burlington High School. The school had reopened my application after the news broke about the false charges. They'd offered me the position immediately, said they admired my resilience. The aftermath had been swift and brutal for my father. Gerald was indicted on 14 counts, including embezzlement, fraud, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. Prosecutors discovered he'd been stealing from client accounts for years, using sophisticated accounting tricks to hide the theft. The firm had insurance, so clients were eventually made whole. But the damage to Gerald's reputation was permanent. He was looking at 10 to 15 years in federal prison. His trial was scheduled for next spring. Tyler had taken a plea deal. He testified against our father in exchange for reduced charges. He lost his CPA license and was sentenced to 3 years probation. His wife left him 2 months ago, took their newborn daughter to her parents' house in Ohio. Tyler sent me one email after the plea deal. Just 2 words. I'm sorry. I never responded. Some apologies come too late to matter. My mother filed for divorce and moved to Florida. The house in Connecticut sold for half its value to cover legal fees and restitution payments. She tried calling me once, about 6 weeks after everything collapsed. I let it go to voicemail. She said she hoped I was happy now that I'd destroyed the family, said she'd never forgive me. I deleted the message and blocked her number. I didn't need her forgiveness. I needed distance. The civil lawsuit settled quietly, The firm's insurance paid me $200,000 to make it go away. It was enough to pay off all the fraudulent debts, compensate Amanda and Frank for their time and expenses, and start fresh. My credit was restored. The criminal charges were fully expunged from my record. Legally, it was like the nightmare never happened. But it did happen. I still woke up sometimes at 3 in the morning, heart racing, convinced I was back in that county jail cell or that warehouse loading dock. The trauma lived in my body, even though the danger was gone. I was seeing a therapist in Burlington, working through it. She said it would take time. I believed her. Amanda and I stayed in touch. She was dating a pediatrician now, seemed happy. She'd text me occasionally to check in, make sure I was eating and sleeping, and taking care of myself. Frank sent me updates about the legal proceedings every few weeks. He seemed to take personal satisfaction in watching Gerald's empire crumble. Said it was the most righteous investigation he'd ever been part of. I hadn't made any new friends yet in Burlington, but I wasn't lonely. For the first time in my life, I was comfortable being alone. There's a difference between isolation forced on you and solitude you choose. I chose this. The quiet apartment. The simple life. The teaching job that paid a third of what I'd made at the accounting firm, but felt 100 times more meaningful. Tomorrow I'd walk into a classroom of teenagers and teach them about quadratic equations. Some of them would be bored, some would be brilliant, some would struggle, but they'd all be there because they had to be, and I'd be there because I wanted to be. That difference mattered more than I could express. I thought about that dinner 3 months ago. The moment my father said, "We own your life," the moment I realized he actually believed that my mother believed it, that Tyler believed it. They genuinely thought they had the right to control me, to punish me for wanting something different, to systematically destroy my life until I submitted to their vision of who I should be. And I thought about all the people out there still trapped in situations like mine. Adult children, controlled by manipulative parents. Employees exploited by powerful bosses. People in relationships with partners, who used love as a weapon. How many of them were sitting in their own versions of that first dinner, being told they were a disgrace, being told to fall in line or face consequences? I'd learned some hard truths over these months. Family isn't sacred just because it's family. Blood doesn't obligate you to accept abuse. Walking away from toxicity isn't weakness, it's survival. And sometimes the people who claim to love you are actually the people destroying you. I'd also learned about resilience, about how much pain a person can endure and still keep going. Every time my parents pushed me lower, I found a way to get back up. The warehouse job, the janitor work, the boarding house room. I survived all of it. Not because I was special or strong, but because I refused to give them the satisfaction of breaking me completely. The biggest lesson was about self-worth. For 32 years, I'd measured my value by external validation. My parents' approval, professional success, social status. When all of that was stripped away, when I had nothing but myself and a few loyal people who chose to help me, I discovered something surprising. I was enough. Not enough for my parents. Not enough for their version of success. But enough for me. Enough to build a life on. Enough to be proud of. I finished my coffee and walked back to my apartment through the snow. Tomorrow I'd stand in front of students and introduce myself. My name is Harrison Davis, and I'm here because I believe mathematics can change your life. Simple truth. No pretense. No family legacy. Just me and what I chose to do with the second chance I'd fought so hard to earn. That night, I unpacked the last box in my apartment. At the bottom was a photo from my college graduation. Me standing between my parents, all of us smiling. Gerald's hand on my shoulder, Patricia beaming with pride. I looked at that photo for a long time, remembering the person I used to be, the person who believed his parents loved him, who thought family meant safety. I threw the photo away. Some people might say, that's sad. That I should forgive them or try to reconcile. But those people haven't lived through what I lived through. They haven't felt the systematic cruelty of people who were supposed to protect you turning every weapon they had against you. Forgiveness is for people who are sorry. My parents weren't sorry. They were angry they got caught. I thought about Tyler's text. I'm sorry. Too little, too late. He'd had a dozen chances to stand with me, to be a real brother. He chose his career and his comfort every time. When he finally said sorry, it wasn't because he'd changed. It was because he'd lost everything and wanted sympathy. That's not remorse. That's self-pity. The next morning, I put on a new shirt and tie, stood in front of my bathroom mirror, and practiced introducing myself. My voice sounded steadier than it had in months. The circles under my eyes were fading. I looked like someone who'd been through hell and come out the other side. I looked like a survivor. Burlington High School was a beautiful brick building with wide hallways and lockers covered in stickers. The principal, Catherine Brennan, gave me a tour and introduced me to other teachers. Everyone was friendly, welcoming. Nobody asked about my past. They only cared about whether I could teach their students. My classroom was on the third floor with windows overlooking the mountains. I spent an hour arranging desks, writing my name on the board, preparing handouts. When the first bell rang, students started filtering in. 25 teenagers, with backpacks and earbuds, and the typical first-day skepticism. I stood at the front of the room and waited for them to settle. Then I introduced myself. My name is Mr. Davis, and I'm here because I believe mathematics can change your life. Not because it makes you rich or successful, though it can help with that, but because it teaches you how to solve problems, how to break down something impossible into smaller, manageable pieces, how to find solutions even when the equation seems unsolvable. One student in the back raised his hand. Did you always want to be a teacher? I paused, thinking about how to answer honestly without telling them everything. No, I said. I used to be an accountant, but I realized I was living someone else's dream, not my own. So I changed paths. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. The student nodded and I continued with the lesson. As I worked through the first problem on the board, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of purpose. This was right. This was where I belonged. After school, I sat at my desk and graded the diagnostic tests I'd given the students. Some were strong. Some needed work. All of them were trying. That was enough. My phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. How was the first day? Perfect, I replied. Thank you for everything. You did this yourself, she wrote back. I just gave you some tools. You're the one who fought. She was right. Nobody saved me. Amanda helped. Frank helped. But the fighting, the surviving, the refusing to give up, that was all me. I'd saved myself. And that meant more than any external validation ever could. As the sun set over the Vermont mountains, I thought about the message I wanted to share, not just with my students, but with anyone who needed to hear it, anyone trapped in a toxic family, anyone being controlled or manipulated, or destroyed by people who claim to love them. Your value doesn't come from others' approval. Not even your parents, especially not your parents if they use that approval as a weapon. True freedom begins when you're willing to lose everything to gain yourself. The people who love you won't need to destroy you to keep you. The ones who destroy you never loved you. They loved controlling you. Walk away from anyone who makes you shrink. Walk away from anyone who punishes you for growth. Walk away from situations that require you to betray yourself for someone else's comfort. And if they take everything from you, know this: you can rebuild. You can survive. You can thrive. Because the worst thing they can do is strip away everything external. They can't touch who you are at your core, unless you let them. I learned that the hard way. I lost my family, my career, my home, nearly my freedom. But I gained something more valuable. I gained myself. The real me. Not the version my parents wanted. Not the version society expected. Just me. Honest, flawed, free. That's not selfishness. That's survival. That's victory. That's living. So here's my question for anyone listening to this story. Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and keeping yourself? Have you ever walked away from family or a job or a relationship because staying would have meant losing who you are? What did that choice cost you? And looking back, was it worth it? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. Share your experiences. Let other people know they're not alone in this struggle. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is rebuild after everything falls apart. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about real people facing impossible situations and finding a way through. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's struggling with toxic family dynamics or workplace abuse, or any situation where they're being destroyed for wanting something different. Thank you for listening to my story. I know it was long and painful and hard to hear in places, but I hope it gave you something. Hope, maybe, or permission, or just the knowledge that you're not alone. Whatever you're going through, whatever impossible situation you're facing, remember this: you're stronger than you think. You can survive more than you believe. And on the other side of the worst pain is a life you actually want to live. Take care of yourselves. Choose yourselves. And never let anyone convince you that their control is the same thing as their love. Until next time.